was only 8 months ago that I was fortunate enough to quit my full-time job as a Sparky and step into a role in a business that I absolutely love. I've now flipped 5 houses since, and I just want to share a bit about my story and how I actually got to this point. Where did it actually all start? So, house flipping was never actually something that I was planning on doing in the big picture. It was something I'd always loved, and I literally used to always watch the renovation shows like The Block, Better Homes and Gardens, and all of these types of shows when I was growing up. But it was never something I actually realised was possible, especially in Australia. I know in the US and other countries it's pretty big there, but I always wondered if it was actually possible in Australia. And it wasn't until my curiosity actually pointed me towards that direction in the middle of last year, which I'll go further into very shortly. But that curiosity led me to the position I'm in now, where I'm literally working full time as a house flipper in Australia, and yeah, it's been extremely financially rewarding already, and it's been something that as I said, I absolutely love doing. So, where did I actually get started? So, it really started with the first project that my partner and I purchased. So, we both relocated from Victoria all the way across to Perth, which was something that was completely new for us. We never really planned to get into real estate at that point, but I was sort of at a bit of a crossroad in my life, and I was getting to the point where I was like, uh, electrician was my background, and I didn't really love it. I didn't love it. I wasn't passionate about it. There wasn't really too much further I could go in that career path if I stayed working as an employee. And to be completely frank, I just hated working for other people. So in that regard, I suppose that made me start thinking, okay, if I don't do something different, and if I don't start looking at other alternatives, I'm going to end up stuck in a job that I'm going to get a look. You still get paid okay as a Sparky, but I mean, if I get my missus pregnant and we have to, I'm supporting her wage, I'm supporting my wage, and then a baby as well, I'm going to get myself stuck in this job. And that was what I really did not want. And that curiosity led me to starting to look for other alternatives. So the first point of call was I actually did a buyer's agents course. So once we got to Perth, I did this buyer's agents course, and I thought, yep, I want to move into real estate. This is the avenue for me. So I spent about 10K on a course to get in as a buyer's agent, and I started doing my homework, doing all the course content and things like that. And at the same time, when we moved to Perth, we were actually house sitting for a couple. So we only had a 4 month timeline. So we were trying to work out what our next step was, and we didn't want to rent a house. We wanted to buy one that we could add value to, and then that was going to allow us to buy the next investment property. That was the sort of path that I started looking at, because I started seeing all these YouTube videos of people talking about financial freedom and how to get there through real estate. And I thought, well, if we can just get X amount of properties over a period of time, then that's going to lead us to where we want. And we're going to be able to retire comfortably in 10 to 15 years, and not necessarily retire. I don't think I'll ever retire, to be completely honest, but I wanted to have choices, and choices to actually be able to do what I wanted to do when I want to do it, and not be told like I was in a job where I had to be, when I can piss, when I can shit, when I can eat, sort of thing through the day. I just hate that structure, and I wanted more freedom. So fast forward, we ended up finding a house in Perth, northern suburbs of Perth, and the strategy behind that was we'll buy one, live in it cheaply, fix it up, me and the missus. Being a trade background, I was pretty handy on the tools. So we pretty much done everything. There was literally one job we outsourced, which was a bit of finishing off on some plasterwork that we done, and everything else we done ourselves. So we were both working full time. We put so much sweat equity into this place, but we were both working full time. Mrs. was managing a Pilates studio. I was working full time as a Sparky, 30, 40, like 40-hour weeks. And then we were doing this on the side. So it was challenging, but fast forward 4 to 5 months down the track, the house was completely finished. So we paid $520 for this place. We put about 30 into it, 25 to 30K, give or take. And then we got the house revalued from the bank, which was the strategy that we were sort of looking to do. We got it revalued so we could pull out some equity, and then that was going to get us into the next investment property. So we done that, realized the house had been revalued to 700K. So we had about between 60 and 70K that we could actually pull out as a line of credit. So that was going to be what we're going to use to get into the next property. But at that point in time, it sort of dawned on me, and I just had this light bulb moment, and I just went, if we get into the next investment property, I'm going to get myself stuck in this job. Our serviceability is going to be maxed out. I'm going to be stuck in this job I hate. And if I don't find another way where I can get out into some sort of business or some sort of side hustle that can turn into a full-time job, if I don't make that change now and I buy this next investment property, I'm going to get myself stuck. And it was that thought and that moment where that thought dawned on me, and it really made me think, okay, I need to find something else. And in the background with all this buyer's agency stuff, that sort of withered away because I got too busy doing all the renovations. And as I was in this point, in this period, I also had this other thought. I was like, I wonder if people are actually doing this full time, because I really loved the renovation process and I loved the transformation and how we actually turned the house from what it was to what it became. And not to mention the financial benefit. Like, we both started with a small amount down. We only put 5% deposit down on this house. I sold my four-wheel drive, and literally all that extra money that we had on the side was what we used to do the renovation. So we didn't start with a lot of money. Just take note of that. And that was what leveraged us and allowed us to get that extra equity. So it was sweat equity. We had to work for it, but that's what got us to that position. And through that curiosity and starting to actually look for other avenues, I started finding people were actually doing it in Australia. And to my surprise, there was actually a guy in Perth that had done like 15 or 20 of these projects. So I started looking into it a bit. Fast forward, long story short, I got some education and I actually figured out how I could do this. Only a few months down the line, I started dropping letters, or literally, it was a lot quicker than that. It was probably 2 or 3 weeks into when I really started educating myself. I started dropping direct mail into some suburbs that had a lot of rundown houses at a cheaper price point in Perth. And I got this call one day. This guy called me up and he basically said, look, I've got a problem. I need to sell this house. Can you help me out? So I went and viewed the property, went through the process, and the negotiation didn't really stack up for me to buy the house. And just take note, I only had a small amount of money there. So the great thing is, with the education that I got, I found out there's actually more than one alternative. You don't just have to buy a house to be able to flip it and make money. You can do what they call a joint venture with the seller. So this isn't financial advice, by the way. Get your own advice, but just from my take of it. So I basically got it written up on a contract that I was going to take over this house. I was going to fix it up, but it was going to stay in the seller's name. That way I could pay him the price he wanted. It avoided stamp duty, it avoided holding costs, and we could create a win-win scenario. So we basically done this joint venture. I renovated the house, we fixed it up, got it back ready for the market. This was 4 weeks it took us, completely transformed the inside and the outside of the property. And then from that point on, we sold the house. There was like 5 or 6 offers after the first home open. It was absolutely crazy. And it actually went like 50K over what I was anticipating as my sale price. So that one flip alone, which I got paid for was only about 30 days later. So from start to finish, it was about 62, 63 days. I was able to flip that property and make $98,000 in basically 4 weeks of work, of actual proper work. Like I had to do the prospecting leading up to it, but let's say 2 months, okay, I'll be generous. 2 months of work, that was more than I was earning as an electrician leading up to that point for a whole year. So at that point, that really piqued my curiosity, and I thought, I'm going all in on this thing. And from there, I fast forward to now. It's it was only probably three months after that, I quit my job. So December 2024, I quit my job, put my nuts on the line, went all in, and then I already had another deal coming up. So that's another thing to take note of in this story. So I didn't just quit my job and just hope that it was going to work out. I made sure I had the next project coming up, and then if not another one, so that I had constant work coming. Because the thing you have to take note of with regards to house flipping is you don't get paid super quick. The transaction takes a few months for you to actually get paid. So you do the work, you put all this capital in, it takes a bit of time, but it's absolutely worth it, because in that 8-week period, or that 4 to 8 week period, I had made more than I was earning in a full year as an electrician in that period. So that was a massive turning point in our life, and that gave me the confidence to know, okay, I can do this thing. I've got belief now that I can do it, and I was so hungry to get out of my job. So at that point, I went all in. I burned the boats, as Tony Robbins says, and I quit my job. Now, would I recommend quitting your job after your first flip? Probably not, upon reflection, and I'll talk about a couple of these lessons that I've learned along the way leading up to now. But I definitely put myself in a bit of a tight position because I still didn't have a heap of capital. A lot of my capital was still tied up in my property, my principal place of residence, the first renovation that we done. So it definitely made me get out of bed a lot quicker in the mornings, and it made me more hungry, putting myself in a tight position. Not to mention, I also bought a four-wheel drive, Ford Ranger Raptor, which was probably stupid in hindsight, but the way that I look at it is it forced me to grow. And I definitely don't encourage you to buy a car after your first project and quit your job literally at the same time. Looking back now, I can look back and appreciate that it's helped me get to this point now. Because if I didn't do that, maybe I wouldn't have dropped as many letters, and maybe I wouldn't have prospected as hard to find more projects. So you got to take the good with the bad, I guess. But I suppose moving forward, there's definitely some great lessons in here. We've now done 6 projects in total, so including our principal place of residence, which was the first one, and the foundation, which, as I mentioned at the start, we weren't actually doing that renovation to start flipping. We didn't even know flipping existed in Australia, but it was that curiosity that actually led us to start looking into it and finding out if people were actually making money doing it. And then we found a couple of people that were doing it, and then learnt the process, and that's how we've got to this point. So look, there's absolutely been challenges along the way, and it's not something that has been an easy journey, but any journey of growth where you are literally putting yourself in a position where, look, we have 5x'd our income since December last year. 5x'd our income on all these projects that we have done. And to be able to get to that point, of course you're going to have to put work in, to go from 90 odd K to 500K plus over 5 actual flip projects, and then we just got paid for our principal place of residence project. Of course, you're going to have to grow, but it's absolutely been worth it. So if you guys are interested to learn a bit more about this and get to know how you could actually potentially do this for yourself one day, like whether you want to actually go full time and quit your job like me, or whether you're curious and you want to potentially just do one flip a year on the side. Like, as I mentioned, I'm averaging over $100,000 in profit per flip. And if you just do one of those, like you could literally, if you're making 100K a year in your salary and you just do one of those on the side a year, you literally double your income. Like, you just got to think, what could you do with that extra $100,000 in your back pocket? If you could do me a massive favor, hit that subscribe button, like this video. If you got any questions, please comment down below, and I look forward to sharing this journey with you guys and hopefully inspiring some of you to get out there and give it a crack yourself.